Most people would run at the sight of a crocodile, but this one swims right up to a man, asking for food like an old friend. What's the story behind this strange and touching bond? You won't believe how it all began. The man sat quietly on his modest wooden boat, the water beneath him gently rippling with each stroke of his oar. In front of him, just a few feet away, was a crocodile, its scaly back glistening under the tropical sun, its eyes watchful yet calm. This creature, more than 4 meters long, moved with a grace that belied its fearsome size. Most would panic at the sight of such a predator so close, but not this man. Instead, he tossed a small fish toward it, and the crocodile, with surprising gentleness, opened its jaws and accepted the offering. What could possibly explain such a strange and peaceful interaction between a human and one of nature's most notorious predators? To understand, we have to go back more than 2 decades, to a time when this unlikely bond first began. 23 years ago, Anbo was just another fisherman trying to make an honest living in a small village on the coast of Indonesia. His life was simple. Each morning, before the sun fully rose, he would gather his nets and head out into the waters. It was hard work, but it provided enough to feed his wife and 2 young children. The sea was his livelihood, his companion, and sometimes his greatest challenge. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Anbo was heading back home when he noticed something small and strange moving near the mangroves. At first glance, he assumed it was a floating log or a stranded fish, but as he got closer, he realized it was a young crocodile, no longer than his arm, struggling to move. The little creature was clearly in distress. It had visible bruises along its side, and its eyes were dull with exhaustion. In Indonesia, crocodiles are not an unusual sight. They inhabit the rivers and estuaries, and people are taught from a young age to avoid them. They are feared, respected, and occasionally even worshipped in local folklore. Anbo knew this. He had always been cautious around them, but this crocodile was different. It looked more pitiful than dangerous. For reasons he couldn't explain, Anbo felt compelled to help. He wrapped the little creature in a wet cloth and brought it home in his boat. His wife was alarmed, warning him of the risks, but Anbo insisted. He placed the crocodile in a shallow pool beside their home and fed it bits of fish. Over the next few days, the crocodile, whom Anbo named Liza, slowly began to recover. At first, Anbo believed this would be a temporary arrangement. Once the crocodile was strong enough, he would release it back into the wild. But something unexpected happened. When the day came for Liza to return to the river, she didn't go far. Instead, she stayed in the shallow waters near Anbo's home. When Anbo would come near, she would lift her head and swim closer, recognizing his voice and presence. Soon a routine formed. Anbo would call Liza's name, and the crocodile would respond by gliding through the water toward him. He'd toss her a few fish, and she would accept them without aggression. After eating, she'd float calmly for a while before retreating to the reeds. The bond, fragile and unspoken, began to grow stronger with each passing day. In the beginning, Anbo's neighbors were skeptical and afraid. Stories of crocodile attacks were not rare in the village. A predator like Liza, especially a saltwater crocodile, was not something anyone would ever consider a companion. But over time, the villagers began to see the unusual behavior for themselves. Liza never showed signs of aggression. She never approached anyone uninvited. Children played by the water without incident. Word spread, and soon Liza became a curiosity, a legend of sorts. As years passed, Liza grew from a frail, injured reptile into a massive and majestic crocodile. But no matter how large she became, her bond with Anbo remained the same. He was the only one who could approach her freely, feed her by hand, or touch her rough scales without fear. She trusted him in a way no one could explain. When Anbo had to leave for extended fishing trips, Liza would still return to the shore near his house, waiting. At times, his wife would enlist the help of neighbors to feed her. Although hesitant, the neighbors soon discovered that Liza was not dangerous to them either. as long as they approached with calmness and care. Her gentleness with people who had helped her once again defied every stereotype about her species. Anbo eventually grew older. The sea that had once been his world became more difficult to navigate with age. His hands, once strong and weathered from years of casting nets, began to tremble. The high-intensity labor of fishing was no longer possible, so he retired. With more time at home, he found solace in the familiar rhythms of life with Liza. Now he could care for her full-time. Each morning, he would walk to the water's edge and call her name. Without fail, Liza would emerge, her powerful body gliding smoothly toward him. Anbo fed her, bathed her with fresh water, and even, much to the amazement of others, brushed her teeth. Liza seemed to enjoy it, resting her heavy head in his lap as he gently cleaned her teeth with a soft bristled brush. There was a strange tenderness between them, something that neither logic nor science could fully explain. Yet this wasn't always the case. As a younger crocodile, Liza had been more unpredictable. She wasn't aggressive, but she was clearly territorial. She would hiss or thrash her tail if someone unknown ventured too close. But those behaviors faded with time. The more care she received, the more she adapted to life around humans. She learned that not all humans were a threat. She began to respond positively to interaction, showing signs of affection and recognition that shocked even the most skeptical onlookers. People from nearby villages heard stories of Anbo's crocodile. At first, they came with fear and doubt. But after witnessing the connection with their own eyes, many were touched. Some brought offerings, fish, fruits, or trinkets, as gestures of goodwill. A few even asked if they could pay to feed Liza themselves, treating her almost like a local treasure. In their culture, crocodiles held spiritual significance, believed to be guardians of rivers and symbols of power. But Liza was different. She wasn't just a symbol. She was a living testament to the idea that even the most fearsome creatures could respond to kindness. Anbo, however, refused every offer to commercialize Liza. No matter how generous the price, he declined. To him, Liza was not an exhibit, not a novelty. She was family. She had lived by his side for 23 years. They had grown together, changed together. She had been there through his youth, through the raising of his children, and now into his old age. Selling access to her would be like selling a piece of his soul. Their bond spoke to something deeper than science or tradition. It was a reminder that the relationships between humans and animals, though often overlooked, could be just as profound as those between people. Theirs was a connection born from compassion, sustained by trust, and strengthened over time. Stories like Anbo and Liza's stir something in us. In a world that often sees animals only through the lens of danger or utility, tales like theirs challenge that narrative. They remind us that animals are not mindless beasts. They feel hunger, pain, fear, and, as in this case, perhaps even trust and affection. All living things have emotions in ways we are only beginning to understand. As guardians of the earth, humans have a responsibility not only to protect, but also to respect the creatures we share this planet with. The natural world is not ours to dominate, but to coexist with, to learn from, to care for, and to admire. Liza's story may be uncommon, but it holds a message that should be universal. It challenges us to view animals not as threats or tools, but as fellow beings sharing this earth with us. One small act of compassion saved her life, and in return, she offered a lifetime of trust and devotion. That simple yet profound exchange speaks volumes about the power of empathy. Today, Anbo spends his time by the water's edge, quietly watching Liza bask in the sun. Between them exists an unspoken bond. No words, just mutual understanding forged through years of connection. Their story flows with the rhythm of nature, echoing a rare and beautiful harmony between man and beast. What makes their tale truly unforgettable isn't just that a man befriended a crocodile, but that a creature feared by many chose to offer love in return. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. also press the bell icon to never miss the updates from our channel. Thank you.